Zach Riley. What's that?
Thanks very much, everyone. I'd like to take this chance to welcome everyone, and we'll call the meeting to order at the hour of 5 o'clock. I'll do the land acknowledgement statement. I'd like to acknowledge that we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabeg, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and these waters, and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. So, I would like to ask that the agenda be approved as presented. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Glenn, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. All those in favor? That motion is carried. I'll ask for a declaration of pecuniary interest in the agenda for tonight. Seeing none, I'll let the members know that if you do feel a pecuniary interest has arisen, you can declare at that time as well. So, looking for a motion that the meetings of the Committee of Adjustment held on February 14th, 2023 be approved. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Motion made by Councillor Member McMillan, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. Pardon me. All those in favor? That motion is carried as well. So, our first order of new business is PL 2023-16, the joint report for consent application B02/23 and zoning bylaw amendment application for Z-03-23 for Melissa McLeod and Casillo Mosquera. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application of consent for Melissa McLeod and Casillo Mosquera under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 218072 Concession 3 Derby. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There have been no requests for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this consent in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on February 17th, 2023 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the property which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed consent may submit an appeal.
Pardon me, I'll just leave my microphone on. Mr. Davidson, please present the application.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
That's perfect, okay. Yep.
Good, thank you. So this application is for a lot line adjustment. It's a consent application, but it is not for the creation of a new parcel of land. It's to adjust a boundary between two existing properties. Melissa and Casillo together own one property upon which their house is located, and then in Casillo's name they own the property next door, and I believe Melissa's folks live in that house. Anyway, at some point in the future, they're going to be, probably sooner than later, selling one or both of these properties, but they'd like to adjust the lot line to reflect the existing use. And what I mean by that is on the well, I have it in front of me anyways. There's a site plan that I prepared, and there's an area of land that is basically an orchard with some landscaping in there and a shed as well. Even though that area of land between the two houses it forms part of the south property, it's been used as part of the north property for a number of years. So the proposal here is simply to move that lot line 38 meters. We did pre-consultation, and there weren't any concerns raised with the with the proposal, and so we have filed the application. The end result will be both lots actually conforming to the zoning bylaw. One is, I believe, undersized now, but there's going to be a deficient a rear yard. Pardon me, the one lot will become a bit smaller, and there will be a deficient side yard, although that's not going to be an issue. For what it's worth, the fence already goes along where the boundary is proposed to be. So it's really, if you saw the property, it's not this is not a surprise. There's not much more to say other than I would ask if that condition about parkland dedication was supposed to be put in there. I apologize, I didn't catch that, and I know Jen's been away. I did talk to try to get hold of some staff this afternoon to talk about that. The parkland dedication requirement typically isn't imposed on lot line adjustments. It's usually imposed where you're creating a new lot or where there's a large development occurring and you can ask for it at site plan control. So I'm not sure if that was intended to be in there. I would, if it was, I would respectfully ask that the committee members remove it. I don't know if it is common practice in Georgian Bluffs to do that. It is not elsewhere. I know with two of the committee members being planners themselves, I would, I guess, maybe turn to them and ask them if they've ever seen that applied. But again, I would respectfully ask that it not be applied here. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Madam Secretary Treasurer, would you like to address that comment before I go to questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We typically don't include a provision because there is technically no new lot being created, as Mr. Davidson did mention. And in the decision that is presented to the committee this evening, the parkland dedication is not included as a condition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary Treasurer. So just do not read 7. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just as a point of clarification, I believe the recommendation for that parkland dedication is in the report. However, it is not in the recommendation that you have in the script for this evening, nor in the decision for this application.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I think they're just worried. I'm like a real bad reporter. I'll read whatever is on the prompter. So we're just correcting my materials here to make sure that I read the proper motion or proper recommendation. I think that's accurate. Correct? Yeah. Okay. So no one is registered with the clerk to comment on this application. I don't see anybody in attendance at this time to speak on the application. Does the committee have any questions or comments? I see you're all very small, so make sure you put your hand right in front of your face. I see Councillor Member Councillor Colburn, and then Committee Member Ladresse will get to you next.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. This may be explained in regards as well to which report we're looking at, but one report read that it's asking for the allowance of a reduced frontage from 100 to 83, I think. But the one I've got in front of me says a reduced minimum lot frontage of 2 meters where 100 meters is required. So depending on which document I look at, they're two very different asks for reducing that minimum frontage. And I just wonder if someone could clarify that for me.
Well, I certainly can. Yeah, the remnant parcel, the retained parcel, will have a frontage of 83.19 meters when the severed land has been removed.
Madam Secretary Treasurer, do you wish to comment, or are you satisfied?
Thank you. I was just going to ask if Member Colburn could clarify, is that the staff report that you're referring to, where there's a discrepancy in the measurements?
I'm looking at the through eScribe at the agenda that's in, I think, the HTML format. And when you scroll down to this application, it's under 6.1.1. I mean, I can try to share this particular document so we can see where we've maybe gone astray with the consistency in the documents. I know I didn't see it in the report, but I did see it in the agenda.
Okay, so through your chair, the agenda is populated from the eScribe system, and so the recommendation that's in the report should align with the recommendation that's in eScribe. And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask Rebecca to provide a clarification on the report and the measurements that or the dimensions that are identified there. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be fine.
The measurements that I have are 83.2 meters, as Mr. Davidson had provided. I'm trying to see the version of the staff report that Member Colburn is referring to. When I pull up the PDF of the agenda, it looks like it's referring to 83.2 meters, but I'm not sure where that discrepancy might be in the HTML version.
I can share that with you by email, that link. Chair Thompson, I don't wish to hold it up as long as we have the official recommendation has the accurate dimensions on it. I think that's probably all we need.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. We'll make the changes that we need to then before we read the recommendation. How about that? Committee, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Committee Member Ladresse.
Hi, thank you, Chair Thompson. I had the same question as Councillor Colburn-Moore. The discrepancy is on page 3 of the PDF document in the agenda. My only concern was that the decision and the recommendation is consistent with the actual frontage that's being proposed. My second question or potentially concern is to do with the actual proposed lot line. It looks on the site plan that you're following the fence line, but I just had a question about the tree line. When I was out on site, it wasn't very clear if the trees are all in a straight line. It doesn't matter if they are or not. I just was worried about potential future ownership and conflict with the trees. I just wanted to make sure that was kind of, if there was a way to alleviate that, or if you could explain if the tree line is in consideration.
Yeah, thank you. If that's directed at me, yeah, if I may ask in return, what would be the conflict with the trees?
Potential ownership in the future, if somebody wanted to cut a tree down or something like that. I just want to make sure that there was clear ownership between the two properties and the trees.
Yeah, I can't confirm that. I mean, I was there a few months ago, but I mean, it's, you know, respectfully, there's tree lines quite often trees are planted on property lines, and I haven't seen there being an issue with that.
Okay, any further questions from the committee members? Follow up, committee member Ledresse?
I think that's all good. I just wanted to make sure that there was hopefully some consideration given to that. I don't have any opposition to the severance proposed, or sorry, boundary adjustment.
Okay, seeing no other comments, excuse me, sorry for my coughing. I'll now call for a vote on the motion. I will now call for a vote on the motion on the decision. It has been demonstrated that the proposed applications are consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conform with the County Official Plan, and complies with the general intent and purpose of the Township of Georgian Bluffs Zoning Bylaw 2020-20. It is recommended that the consent application B02/23 for Melissa McLeod and Casayo Mosquera be approved, subject to the following conditions. That one, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received by the Land Registry Office. That the application is for a lot addition only, and that the lands to be severed be merged under the same ownership as the abutting lands. Concession 3, Part Lot 14, RP 16R6761, Part 2, PIN number 37077-0631, and that subsection 3 or 5 of the Planning Act shall apply to any subsequent conveyance. 3, that a copy of the registered deed to the abutting lands, Concession 3, Part Lot 14, RP 16R6761, Part 2, PIN 37077-0631 shall be filed with the Township of Georgian Bluffs Committee of Adjustment. 4, that pursuant to Section 5342 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of the notice of decision, or as specified in the Planning Act at the same time of the deed stamping. Note, Section 53, Paragraph 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. stamping of the deed. 5, that the applicants pay the applicable consent certification fee at the time of certification of the deeds. 6, that the applicant pays, if applicable, the consent cancellation fee at the time of the certification of the deeds. And 7, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in force and effect to recognize the reduced minimum lot area of the retained lands of 0.6 hectares where 0.8 hectares is required, the reduced minimum lot frontage of 83.2 meters where 100 meters is required, and the reduced minimum interior side yard setback of 4 meters where 10 meters is required by the rural zone. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by committee member Glenn, seconded by Councillor Coburn. All those in favor? That motion is approved. I will now call for an adjournment of this hearing. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by committee member Glenn, seconded by committee member Ladresse. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Committee member McMillan, we've lost you. He just disappeared off the screen on me. I did not see him vote on it. Regardless, I guess there's a sufficient vote for the motion to pass. And we've adjourned this. We did successfully adjourn this. Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to move to the next hearing. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for consent for Siegfried Merkt. Is that right, Merkt, sir? Under Section 53 of the Planning Act regarding property located at 157 Sutherland Road. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please go ahead with your review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There has been no request for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this consent in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on February 13th, 2023 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the property, which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the committee in respect to this proposed consent may submit an appeal.
Thank you, Madam Secretary Treasurer. Mr. Merck, please feel free to present your application. That's okay. That's informal enough. Feel comfortable. Yep, just push your button there. Yep.
This is just for a lot addition for our neighbors, Rod Waite at 153 Sutherland Road.
Thank you. Now, no one has registered with the clerk to comment on this application, so I'm going to look to the committee. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the application? Pick it out. Okay, thank you. So no one on the committee has any any questions or comments. Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'm going to look to you to ask about the cash in lieu of parkland for this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I must have a different script than what you have here. There was no parkland dedication noted on the decision or on the script that I have. As it's a lot addition, we typically do not ask for cash in lieu of parkland simply because there is no creation of a new lot. So if the committee would like to remove that condition, I would support that.
Thank you. I'm seeing not. Committee member Glenn, do you wish to comment?
No, I was just going to move that condition be removed.
That sounds fine. We'll remove that unless the applicant wishes to make a donation just for good times. We'll remove the parkland dedication fee from the recommendation. So I will, if there's no further questions, I'll now call for a vote on the motion on the decision. It has been demonstrated that application B01-23/23 for Siegfried Merkt on the lands described as Part Lot 27 and 28, Concession 18 Keppel, as in R463107, except Part 1, 16 R8519, ST R463107, Georgian Bluffs, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Grey's official plan, and conforms to the Niagara Escarpment Plan. It is recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that a reference plan be completed and a copy filed with the municipal clerk, or an exemption from the reference plan be received from the Land Registry Office. 2, that pursuant to Section 53, Paragraph 42 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of giving of the notice of decision. Note, Section 53, Paragraph 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate, i.e. the stamping of the deed. 3, that the application is for a lot addition only, and that the lands be severed, and that the lands to be severed be merged under the same ownership as the abutting lands. Concession 18, Part Lot 28, PIN 37027-0121, and that subsection 3 or 5 of Section 50 of the Planning Act shall apply to any subsequent conveyance. 4, that a copy of the registered deed to the abutting lands, Concession 18, Part Lot 28, ROW, PIN 37027-0121, shall be filed with the Township of the Georgian Bluffs Committee of Adjustment. 5, that the owner pays the applicable consent certification fee at the time of the certification of the deeds. 6, that the applicant pays the applicable consent cancellation fee at the time of the certification of the deeds. And 7, that the owners enter into a consent agreement to require an archaeological assessment prior to the issuance of a building permit for any proposed future development on these lands so affected within the severed parcel, and with the said consent agreement to be registered on title. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Committee Member Glenn, seconded by Committee Member Ladresse. All those in favor? That motion is approved. I'll now call for an adjournment of this meeting. Moved by Councillor Colburn, seconded by Committee Member Glenn. All those in favor? This public hearing is now adjourned. So I'll look to the committee members. I don't see any unfinished business, but I do have a comment or a question about our next regularly scheduled meeting. Madam Secretary Treasurer, did you want to address that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The next meeting will be held in May. The April meeting will need to be canceled as there won't be, there's no applications to consider.
Okay, so I'm hearing that our next regularly scheduled meeting will be, you said May 16th at 5 p.m.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. If there's no further business, I will now call for an adjournment of this meeting. Asking for, moved by Committee Member Ladresse, seconded by Committee Member Glenn. All those in favor? We are now adjourned. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good night.